Hello, everybody. Welcome to our webinar today, which is on Soldo's carbon emissions tracker, A Greener Bottom Line. It's all about leveraging carbon tracking in your spend. Here at Soldo, we do spend management, especially that difficult category of decentralized spend. More on that in other webinars, of course, but since we can report on what is being spent in your organization, it was a natural progression for us to calculate the carbon cost as well as the cost in terms of currency. From my personal background in sustainability and from hundreds of conversations with organizations of all sizes, I know that measurement of carbon emissions, and particularly Scope 3 emissions, is a growing challenge for most of them. So what we've done is we've partnered with Lune, who are a leader in this space. And today I'm delighted to welcome Eric Staddy, who's CEO of Lune. He's here with us today to talk about the feature, to talk about the partnership and all the goodness that Lune brings to the table. So without further ado, Eric, welcome.
Thank you so much, Rory. Pleasure to be here.
Great. Let's dive straight in. So let me ask you to start by introducing yourself and telling us a bit about Lune.
Absolutely. So, hi everyone, I'm Eric. I'm the CEO and one of the two co-founders at Lune. At Lune, we're on the mission to make every single product and service climate positive by default. We do that by offering embedded climate action software. That means we offer an API and software tools for granular carbon tracking and reporting, as well as really high quality carbon removal. So we make it super easy for a company like Soldo to integrate climate action into their product offering so that they can better serve their end clients on their sustainability journeys.
So, Eric, we know that sustainability is a big topic, and I'm delighted that you're focused on this. But specifically talking about reporting, what do you see as the challenges that businesses are facing around ESG reporting?
Yeah, so today there are tens of thousands of businesses that voluntarily report on their carbon emissions. And increasingly, businesses have to do it because regulation is being rolled out. And for the vast majority of businesses, that's difficult, because it's new to them. They don't have the resources, they don't have the know-how, they don't have the time. We're all busy. So getting the correct data to do the carbon emissions measurements, knowing how to calculate those carbon emissions, and then put together a report for whether it's voluntary or compliance purposes. That whole journey, it's difficult. It takes time. So the way companies are typically solving it is that they're working with expensive consultants, spending hundreds of thousands of euros or pounds for larger corporates, millions of euros of pounds or pounds, and also months and months of their time to do that. And it's a unanimous challenge for every single business that either wants to do this or has to do this. And because more and more businesses have to do it, it's a growing problem for businesses.
Yeah, and I have to say my personal experience in talking to organizations is sustainability and the actions that a company takes or an organization takes may sit in various different places. But it seems to me that the reporting is falling back on the finance teams. Is that your experience as well?
Well, that's definitely one place where it's falling. So typically I'd say it's a mix between falling on the finance team, or if the company already has some kind of sustainability team in place, it would be kind of somewhere between the finance team and the sustainability team. Like they would typically collaborate on that very closely. But absolutely, Rory.
Okay, so Eric, you talked a moment ago about regulation, which is always a scary word. Can you share with us the timeline of upcoming regulatory changes across Europe and in the UK? Because we know they're imminent, and some are
Yeah,
already in place, of course.
exactly. What's great to see is that climate regulation is being rolled out across the world. The EU and UK are clear front runners on this. So sustainability has been taken more seriously in the EU and the UK so far. Other regions are catching up though, which is also encouraging. So in the EU, I actually have one slide just to visualize this that I'll share so that it's easier to follow what I'm saying. So in the EU, the climate regulation is called CSRD. In the UK, it's called SECR. As is typical, they tend to be complex 3 to 4 letter acronyms, so don't get overwhelmed by that. In the EU, the first reports are already being due this year, and then now every year, more and more companies will fall under this regulation. So now it's public interest entities with more than 500 employees, and starting already in 2025, so just now, companies will have to start tracking their emissions to report early 2026. And these companies are companies that fit 2 out of the 3 requirements listed here. So over 250 employees, over 50 million euros in revenue, over 25 million euros in total assets. So companies that tick 2 of those 3 boxes will need to start tracking their emissions in 2025 in order to report them early 2026. And this is obviously a huge number of companies in the EU. We're talking tens of thousands of businesses in the EU. In the UK, already now, companies that fit 2 of these 3 boxes here on the bottom left, 250 employees, 36 million in revenue, 18 million in total assets, have to report on their carbon emissions. Now in the UK, today it's only scope 1 and scope 2 emissions, so emissions that are within a company's control, where scope 3, that's supply chain emissions, company spend, business travel, and so on, are only strongly recommended. But that's also changing. So starting now in 2025, businesses have to start tracking those in order to start reporting them in 2026. So this is imminent for tens of thousands of businesses from a regulatory perspective already now this year.
Yeah, and I make no apology. I'm just going to reiterate, even if you're in the category that needs to report in 2026, guess what? You're reporting on 2025 data, as Eric said. So you need to start tracking it, and you need to start tracking it soon. I don't mean to be heavy about this, but it's in your own interest.
And
One of the
on
things,
that, actually, sorry, Rory, one more thing on
go
that.
ahead.
Actually, you know, what we've seen from our customers and their clients is that you want to put the processes in place to track this sooner rather than later, because then all of these reporting requirements won't be a problem for you. You know, the sooner you put the processes in place, the smoother that whole process will be. The vast majority of companies, or at least many companies, wait until the last minute, which means that there's a panic, people are shuffling, they have to hire more consultants and pay way more money in order to meet those regulatory deadlines. So the sooner you get going with tracking this, the cheaper it will be for your business.
Absolutely. And it makes so much more sense to track as you go along rather than come back and do it retrospectively. And the cost is hugely different as well. Yeah, good point. So you've mentioned the regulatory environment. You've mentioned that there's the reporting requirements both from the EU and for the UK. And you mentioned who. What we haven't got to is what happens if you don't. So what are the risks of not prioritizing ESG tracking, carbon emissions and equivalent tracking in today's regulatory environment?
Yeah, so risks come from a few different perspectives. So there's a direct financial risk associated with non-compliance. So for example, in the UK, there are potential fines up to £40 per misreported ton of CO2. So imagine if you're a company that has 100,000 tons of total carbon emissions and you get that wrong, you misreport, you don't include 10% of your carbon emissions, that's 10,000 tons, and then you're potentially liable for up to £40 per ton. And that very quickly adds up to a huge number. In the EU, they've also waved around potential jail time even. Now, honestly, I highly doubt that anyone's going to be put in jail, especially in the beginning. But that's something they're waving around. Realistically, though, I think in the beginning there may be slaps on the wrist, potential monetary fines, and then eventually, in the long term, more and more severe punishments. But then also beyond that, anything sustainability related, there are broader risks for companies that kind of get left behind. We see this across the board, where it's company reputation. If you're not among the leaders from a sustainability standpoint, it's employee retention and attracting top talent, because especially the younger generations, they want to work for companies that take sustainability seriously. It's attracting the right investors, because increasingly investors are demanding their investee companies to do better from a sustainability standpoint. So getting access to capital and so on and so forth. So there are lots of both tangible, measurable risks and benefits, as well as some of the more softer brand reputation and so on and so forth.
I'm minded of when the EU introduced the GDPR, and the line was, "Do you want to be the example case that they take to prove that they're serious about it?" I suspect exactly the same will happen, and I totally echo what you say, Eric, about it's not just financial, it's reputational, it's talent. And I'll put in a shout for the older generation also being concerned about sustainability and wanting to work for organizations that take it seriously. So we've talked about the why. Let's talk about the how. What challenges, in your experience, Eric, do businesses face when they're trying to align financial performance with sustainability goals? There has been for some time a view that, sustainability and measuring and tracking, the green cost. But we're actually at the point now where action on sustainability is net positive to the bottom line. Is that your experience? Are you seeing that, or is that just me being a little bit hopeful?
No, I think you're spot on there, Rory. And I think that's one of the things that's so encouraging to see, that increasingly businesses are seeing sustainability as a business opportunity rather than a cost center. If we look back 5, 10, 15 years, it was clear that people thought of sustainability as a pure cost center. We have to invest. It's a pure nice to have, and everyone were dragging their feet. That's changed over the past 5 years, and that change is only accelerating going forward, where companies that take sustainability seriously, they measure their emissions, they put in reduction plans, they make sustainability part of their solution, their product offering, they talk about it loudly, and so on and so forth. They are the businesses that end up standing out from the crowd. They win more customers. They, as I mentioned just now, they attract the right talent, they attract the right investment, and so on and so forth. And ultimately, it will go even beyond that, that it's not just a competitive advantage for businesses, but it's the expectation. You know, there will be a tipping point that if you're not doing all the right things, then no one's going to touch you. Like, you're literally left behind. So that's a really, really encouraging shift that has happened and is only increasing now over the years to come.
Okay, so how do people get started? You know, what advice would you give? Because you've been doing this a while. What advice would you give to businesses who are starting that ESG reporting journey? Are you seeing companies, you know, does it make more sense to have a separate sustainability tracking team? Does it become part of the finance organization or somewhere else? You know, just give me some thoughts on that.
Yeah. The short answer is just get started, and don't let perfect get in the way of doing something. Doing something is so much better than trying to like do everything and do all the right things and so on and so forth. Start with the small things and then improve over time. Sustainability is a new topic for every single business. We're all learning, we're all improving. No one's doing it in a perfect way. So as long as we're doing something and we're mindful that yes, it's a journey and we will improve over time, that's fantastic. So low-hanging fruit being things like, well, for example, subscribing or enabling the Soldo CO2 tracker to get the emissions reporting for company spend. And that's already the majority of carbon emissions for many businesses. And then, you know, next year you can work to fill the gap and get the remainder of your company's carbon emissions into your report. And once you have the, you know, a simple visibility into your carbon emissions, you can start thinking, all right, well, what are the low-hanging fruit to reduce carbon emissions? Doesn't have to be overly scientific to begin with. Look at, okay, well, 50% of our company's carbon emissions are corporate travel. Well, what can we do to travel slightly less with flights? And let's put a goal to reducing that by 20% by next year. That's a very low-hanging fruit for the vast majority of businesses, and things like that. And then again, over time, improve on those processes, get more granular data, get more scientific about the emission reductions, think about how can I go beyond emission reductions and offset my emissions by contributing to really high quality carbon offset projects like reforestation and then so on and so forth, or other even more permanent solutions like direct air capture and so on and so forth. And they're also doing that in a way where, you know, you start by contributing something and then over time you improve on those processes to, you know, do even better and even better. But doesn't have to be overly scientific in year one, as long as you're doing something and mindful that you're going to improve over time. And then maybe the final thing to your last point there, Rory, where should this sit? Well, again, to get started, doesn't even matter. Like, don't overthink things. Don't overthink that, oh, we have to recruit some new people. We have to bring in the right expertise to do this. No, just who is the most passionate person internally in your organization about this topic? Let them be the sustainability ambassador and give them the power and the budget to do something right away. And then think, where should this sit? Okay, is it a finance team thing? Should we recruit one or two people, or whatever works best for your organization?
I echo everything you said, Eric. You know, what I've seen is evangelists, ambassadors, people who are passionate about this taking the lead in so many organizations. And the great thing is it's marginal gains. You can make a little change to something. You know, I've seen carrot and stick approaches. Take a train instead of a plane if you're going on a shorter journey. Take more sustainable travel. You know, even Uber will offer you an electric taxi over a regular, you know, a carbon combustion engined taxi. I'll put my teeth back in. You know, and there's so much you can do that makes a difference. The other piece I'd quickly call out before this becomes a non-stop advert for our partnership in bringing the Soldo carbon emissions tracker. There are many platforms that allow you to measure and track your carbon emissions across your organization, as well as many really smart independent consultancies that can help you with that if you want to go the consultancy route. So there's loads of action you can take if you're just getting started. Finally, I'd like to ask you, Eric, sort of what kind of metrics are you seeing companies focus on, or what do you recommend? You know, we've said you can start in a number of different ways. You mentioned air travel, which is obviously an easy one. There are plenty of others, but what specific metrics do you think companies should focus on? And allied to that, you hinted at some of the actions people can take: reforestation, sustainable forest management. You know, there are so many things people can do. And we have made that available from your platform through the Soldo spend management platform, so that people can not just track what they're doing, but take action. So, sorry, that was a bit of a long question, but metrics and what actions can they take to achieve greater success with ESG?
Yeah, on the metric side, I'll kind of follow in the same vein that what I just was saying, that, you know, start with something, keep it simple to begin with, don't get overly scientific about it to start with. So for example, just total carbon emissions of our business. If you have a rough understanding of that number, then you can start thinking about, okay, where are hotspots? Where can we reduce this? And so, for example, when looking at the company's spend related carbon emissions through the Soldo CO2 tracker, you also get a breakdown of what are the large categories of carbon emissions. There's the travel, there's the food, there's the office space, and so on and so forth. So by getting that high level overview, that already will give you lots of tools to take action from that. So starting with that, and then over time, you can get more scientific. Okay, let's break it down into our scope 1, scope 2, scope 3 emissions, where scope 1 are companies' owned assets, scope 2 is energy and well, electricity and heating, and then scope 3 is things that are out of our control, supply chain, business travel, and so on. May be more difficult sometimes to impact those. And then over time, maybe you want to go even beyond that, like, you know, beyond just carbon emissions. Like, what are our companies, things like water usage or other things like that you might look in your supply chain. But keep it simple to start with, and then also other metrics to understand, you know, things like carbon emissions per employee or carbon emissions per euro or pound of revenue, so that you can look at the carbon intensity of your business to also see, are you improving as your company's growing? Is the carbon intensity of your business going down, which you might want to do. But starting simple, just total carbon emissions is fine.
Right. And
then,
what
sorry.
about offsetting and insetting? Because I know that's a big piece.
Absolutely. So, of course, emissions reductions is always the top priority for any business. That should be the number one focus area. So once you have the hotspots of where carbon emissions are coming from, think about how can you impact those and say, hey, okay, let's travel less, or let's next time we make a purchase for office furniture, can we buy it from a more sustainable source, or whatever it may be. So that's number one. But then it's so easy for companies to go above and beyond and have a positive impact. So, for example, carbon offsetting, which has very much become a dirty word in many regards. The carbon offset market is a complete wild west. Most carbon projects out there don't have the impact they claim they have. Many have no positive impact at all, which is really unfortunate. But even with all the problems in the carbon market, when done right, it's an absolutely essential tool in tackling the climate crisis. These carbon projects like reforestation or direct air capture or biochar or whatever, they are the single best mechanism we have to remove CO2 from the atmosphere in a scalable way. We've put trillions of tons of CO2 into the atmosphere that will remain there for thousands of years, or roughly 1,000 years actually, and just keep heating the planet unless we remove it and store it somewhere in a way that it will remain out of the atmosphere. So we have to remove carbon from the atmosphere. At the same time, we're cutting down forest faster than ever before. So carbon projects are the single best mechanism we have to protect and conserve nature in a scalable way. So by funding these projects, buying carbon credits from high quality projects, such as the ones that Lune offers, it's an absolutely essential tool to tackle the climate crisis, in addition and done in parallel to emission reductions.
Absolutely. And I'm going to add one other category to that, which is rewilding, which makes a huge difference. So, there's hope. There's always hope, but it's not blind hope. There are projects that really do make a difference. All I would do is encourage anybody watching and listening to make sure you use a reputable supplier. We did our due diligence. That's why we're partnering with Lune. There are many out there. As Eric says, the carbon market is a bit of a wild west, but there are good players in that. So just do your homework and you can make a big difference. Okay, so what we're going to do, Eric, is we'll move to a quick demo of the product itself. But just before I do that, let me ask you one final question, and thank you for all the time you've given us today. So my last question is, how do you see ESG reporting, and specifically carbon emissions and equivalent emissions reporting, evolving over the next 5 to 10 years? You kind of hinted at it, but I just wanted to ask you that as a specific question.
Yeah. So I think it's obvious that carbon emissions reporting, potentially broader ESG reporting as well, will become a default way of doing business, like financial accounting and financial reporting. We will include carbon emissions reporting in a similar vein. And probably similar to financial reporting, there will be different tiers of requirements and granularity and so on. Large public companies will have very strict and granular requirements. Small businesses, more high level, simple, quick and dirty reporting on that side as well. And interestingly, I think also the way companies will go about getting this data will be through their existing vendors and service providers, so that it becomes as easy as possible for them to do it. So for all corporate spend and corporate travel related data that is tracked in Soldo already, well, companies will get the associated carbon emissions and emissions reductions and so on directly through Soldo. And for corporate, logistics related carbon emissions, they will get those directly from their logistics provider, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I mean, certainly one of the things I'm seeing is projects at one of the organizations I was talking to a couple of days ago. They no longer have to just feature the financial cost. In order to get approval for a project, you have to calculate carbon as well. And they're helping people with that calculation, but it allows them to track in advance the projects that they're going to approve, because they are more sustainable, and approve the projects that make sense. And then the other piece I've seen increasingly is supplier contracts, where they want to understand your emissions, and therefore, even if you're a smaller organization supplying a larger organization, you're going to need to be able to report in order to win business, or in order to continue in business with your customers and clients. So we're certainly seeing all of that happen now. Eric, I'm going to thank you for your time. We will include a link to a demo so that people can click through and see how all of this works. But it's been a really useful conversation, and thank you for talking through your view of the market from right within it. We're excited to partner with you to bring this feature to our product, and I really hope that our customers and clients start to use it, find it useful, and take it forward in their businesses. So thank you to Eric for your time. Thank you to all of you for watching. Any questions, please do get in touch. Have a great day.
Thank you so much, Rory.